tonight is what's coming up.
50 schools face the very real possibility of failing to open for second-term learning as floods wreak havoc in counties.
Tuweke kilaka, tuhakikishe kwamba tumebadilisha katiba na isaidie Mkenya.
Wale wameanzisha debate ya kuweka the third layer, gorofa ya tatu ya ugatuzi. Tuwasema sasa focus yetu iwe to strengthen ugatuzi downwards, tuweke mizizi, tuweke msingi dhabiti.
Referendum proposal splits politicians from Jubilee and NASA as most defy political affiliation in taking up new positions.
And I want to respond directly to the leader of minority in the National Assembly, Honorable John Buddy, that if he thinks that this Senate and this committee is extortionist, then is very misinformed. In fact, I would suspect that Honorable Buddy could be talking about the things they used to do in the Public Accounts Committee.
Senators and MPs fight over probe into controversial payment of billions for disputed Ruaraka land.
Drama in the city as goons rough up former NCBDA chairman as he tried to address the state of Nairobi.
NTV Tonight with Gladys, Gachanja and Trevor, Ombija.
Thank you for joining us. Our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agondoa.
Close to 50 schools may fail to open for second term after the classrooms in those schools were swept away by flood waters, with others rendered inaccessible due to the floods being experienced in different areas in the country. Tana River and Baringo counties are hard hit, with some displaced families being hosted in schools in some regions.
In Tana Delta sub-county, Tana River County, over 30 schools have been submerged by the floods. Garrison Member of Parliament Ali Wario is now appealing to the Ministry of Education to put in place measures that will ensure affected pupils attend alternative schools with the second term of learning beginning on Wednesday. Hundreds of families are living in camps after they were displaced by floods, especially in Gamba area. In Baringo, 5 more schools have been submerged today, bringing to 10 the number of schools affected by the floods in the region. More than 350 families have been displaced, with property worth millions having been swept away by floodwaters. Elsewhere, an estimated 100 families in Ndeia, Limuru in Kiambu County risk being swept away by floods after they defied a directive by government to vacate a wetland that is now partially submerged by rainwaters. Some houses have already been submerged, but even with that, the residents are adamant they won't move to raised areas out of fear that the disputed land will be grabbed once they vacate. In an almost similar scenario, residents of landslide-prone areas in Muranga County have ignored calls by government to relocate to safer places. Efforts by area politicians to woo residents to move to Mutito Polytechnic in Madhioya sub-county, where the 40 families that were affected by landslides early this month are being accommodated, were futile. The residents say the conditions in the Polytechnic are unfavorable due to congestion. In Gatina Ward, Dagoretti, North Nairobi County, residents are living in fear of a cholera outbreak after broken sewers spilled effluent into flood waters that have flowed into their houses. The residents claim their leaders, especially chiefs, have been coming to take photographs of the situation but haven't offered any assistance to them. The only choice they now have is to vacate the area. Today, Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa toured areas affected by floods in Mandera County, where together with his trade counterpart Eden Mohammed gave relief food to affected families at Elwak. The leaders said the government has enough food that will be distributed to all regions affected by floods in the country. Daniel Mule, NTV.
Well, a group of legislators from Kakamega County have called on political leaders to stop the political rhetoric over the proposed referendum to change the constitution.
While speaking at Parliament buildings, the leaders maintained that it's a high time the constitution promulgated in 2010 was given a proper audit.
And Oxycolia will be reporting on the sharp divisions that have emerged since the referendum question popped up, and that's in just a little while before now.
Exactly. The Senate Public Accounts and Investments Committee has denied having ulterior motives in investigating the Ruaraka land dispute.
Committee Chairman Moses Kajwang said senators in the committee were not extortionists and were safeguarding public interest with the investigation into the disputed 13-acre piece of land. This comes amidst allegations of bribery and extortion against committee members.
Well, the committee is probing the multi-billion land ownership saga that is currently being investigated by the Parliamentary Committee on Lands, NTV's Seth Olale, with the latest developments on a controversy-ridden dispute.
We cannot afford to let it go the Goldenberg way.
Members of the Senate Public Accounts and Investment Committee, who are conducting a parallel investigation on the 3.3 billion Ruaraka land compensation saga, have denied claims that they are motivated by kickbacks.
Mr. Mburu,
The committee, which summoned the managing director of Afrison Export-Import and Woollands Company, Francis Mburu, to Parliament buildings, was faulted by National Assembly Minority Leader John Mbadi for conducting a parallel inquiry into the multi-billion land dispute that is also being probed by the Parliamentary Committee on Lands. However, the senators have denied having a sinister motive in the inquiry.
there have been allegations that some of these committees have become dens of extortion. And I want to respond directly to the leader of minority in the National Assembly, Honorable John Mbadi, that if he thinks that this Senate and this committee is extortionist, then is very misinformed. In fact, I would suspect that Honorable Mbadi could be talking about the things they used to do in the Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly.
Francis Mburu, who was appearing before the parallel committee barely a week since also being questioned by the National Assembly Committee on Lands, expressed fears that there could be interested parties lying behind the Senate committee.
I just want fairness from the Senate, and we conclude this inquiry in a fair way, but not assuming that my land has no value.
The Senate Public Accounts and Investment Committee, which partly had the submissions of Francis Mburu on the 13-acre Rwanda land ownership dispute, ordered all the listed managing directors of the companies involved to appear before it next week for more inquiry into the issue.
You cannot give approvals for the development of a school on private land unless you can see documentary evidence.
We are looking at the transactions. We don't want a situation whereby the counties lose money.
We are taking care of the public interest, and also will take care of the buyer or the owner of the land, because he's part of the public and is also a taxpayer.
The Senate Committee on Public Accounts and Investment insists that it is not on a witch-hunting mission, even as the managing director of Afrison Export-Import and Woollands Limited now wants to revert the money to the government and instead claim over 6 billion shillings, which he says that is worth the land being disputed. Seth Olale, NTV, Parliament Building.
Education Matters, the University Academic Staff Union, has decried intimidation of striking lecturers after several members were suspended and others spoke of intimidation from police officers on campuses.
WASU National Vice Chairperson Joseph Beria says the lecturer strike is still on and has asked lecturers not to bow down to intimidation, as NTV's Sharon Baranga reports.
We are asking our members, wherever they are, to remain on strike and completely and totally ignore the intimidation they are getting from the Vice Chancellors.
The National Vice Chair's pronouncement comes against a backdrop of suspension letters being dished out to members of the University Academic Staff Union participating in the industrial action, and others from Pwani University claiming intimidation from university's administration and police officers camping at the institution.
In no return to work formula that we have ever said from 2004 to today, they protect the job, they have got the job security, They also protect members from any loss of income. So they are wasting time. Because at the end of the day, the government is giving an offer.
The lecturers have not received their March and April salaries.
We shall write a watertight return to work formula that will protect the jobs that they are threatening. They will also pay the salaries for March and April. We are used to intimidation. Was registered in 2003. And by 2004, we went on a strike that took 9 months. Nobody was sacked. Nobody lost money.
The union leaders claim that the lecturers will only resume their duties once they receive a counter offer to their 2017-2021 collective bargaining agreement. But their unity is now being tested as lecturers from Technical University of Kenya have agreed to resume their duties as of Wednesday. A letter by the university's deputy vice-chancellor which announces the development states in part, further to a notice to members of staff dated 23rd April 2018, in which they were asked to sign a commitment form as a basis of ensuring that operations of the university are normalized. The responses have been received and duly analyzed. The letter continues, it has emerged that an overwhelming number of staff are willing and ready to continue discharging their duties. End of quote. Union leaders say they have faith in the committee that was put up by the Ministry of Education. They believe the task force will help them achieve what they have been pushing for all along. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
To that story we promised you earlier, a group of legislators from Kakamega County have called on political leaders to stop the political rhetoric over the proposed referendum to change the constitution.
Well, speaking at Parliament buildings, the leaders maintained that it's a high time the constitution promulgated in 2010 was given a proper audit.
And Oxycolia now reports on the sharp divisions that have emerged since the referendum question popped up.
The move by President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA leader Raila Odinga to appoint a team of advisors to power the Building of Bridges initiative has elicited mixed reactions. A section of NASA legislators now want the list reviewed to bring on board youthful citizens and ensure the gender role.
Hakuna kijana hata mmoja. Sisi tunasema, sisi kama vijana ni lazima tuwe katika meza hiyo.
Kama hawatatusikiza, sisi tumeamua tutatengeneza kongamano letu la vijana na tuanze mazungumzo kama vijana katika nchi yetu ya Kenya.
We need to save our children. The establishment of the advisory team puts the handshake train on the rail, and it's only a matter of time before it departs the station. The announcement coming on the backdrop of what has been seen as a cozy affair among the Kenyatta, Moi and Odinga dynasties. And with the train steaming up, leaders allied to Deputy President William Ruto appear not so keen to get on board. The popping up of the referendum question that seeks to restructure the governance structure, complicating matters.
Kwa sasa hatuwezi sema nyumba hatujaweka msingi sawa sawa, alafu tuanze kujenga gorofa ya pili. Sababu usipokuwa na msingi dhabiti, uongeze gorofa ya pili, sio nyumba itaanguka.
Hata hii katiba ya 2010 tulibadilisha kwa sababu kuna wengine walikuwa wamekosa formula ya kupata kiti. Baada ya kubadilisha katiba walishindwa.
Leading names from both sides of the proposed referendum have differed over the idea of altering the supreme law of the land. Legislators allied to Deputy President William Ruto have clashed with those friendly to the former premier, with Ruto's allies claiming that the clamor to change the 2010 document is being driven by a clique of powerful individuals working against his ambition to succeed the head of state in 2022.
Hakuna katiba tutabadilisha ndio tuwapatie watu wengine ativiti ndio tunawatafutia.
The war between Ruto's supporters and those seen to be championing for the popular vote have intensified in recent weeks.
Tuweke kilaka, tuhakikishe kwamba tumebadilisha katiba na isaidie Mkenya. Kwa hivyo let them relax. We are ready. Wakati itapokofika kwamba ni kupambana uwanjani, tutapambana bila kuogopa. Na wale ambao wajui watajua wajui.
The president, who is expected to issue a State of the Nation address on Wednesday, is yet to clearly state his position on the issue, even though he issued a veiled statement against it. Oxycolia, NTV.
Let's talk about saving Mother Nature now. And the Task Force on Forest Resources and Logging Activities has presented a list of those suspected to be involved in the mismanagement of forests and illegal logging in the country to the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, that's Keriako Tobiko.
While the list remains confidential, Tobiko says he will present it to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission for further investigations and prosecution. Andrew Cheng with more.
It has been 7 weeks of painstaking work, travelling all over the country and taking stock of the country's forest cover. As it handed over its report today, the Task Force on Forest Resources also handed over a brown envelope. Inside was a list of Kenyans who have allegedly been illegally benefiting from Kenya's forest resources. The Task Force has defended the list and says they have evidence to back all the claims.
There is no politics here. And we stand as Task Force members with every recommendation and every finding that we speak of.
This document, together with any evidentiary material, will be forwarded to the Anti-Corruption, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission for them to do what they are best suited to do.
We mean what we are saying. We are ready to testify anywhere.
While the names on the list remain a secret, it is believed that most of them are employees of the Kenya Forest Service. Already 16 employees from the service have been suspended pending investigations on allegations of corruption. The report on the task force gives a strong indictment on KFS, accusing it of gross mismanagement of the forests, lack of enforcement of laws governing forests, and directly issuing permission to sawmillers to cut trees in the forests.
The Kenya Forest Service has institutionalized corruption, and the system is replete with deep-rooted corruptive practices, lack of accountability, and unethical behavior.
Among the recommendations by the task force is that there should be a new board of management at the service. The task force also wants a caretaker management team to manage KFS and vet all the officers. The task force has also recommended a total ban on logging and the use of cedar trees and wants the creation of buffer zones that are 500 meters wide. The task force is also recommending that plantations that are located inside conservation zones should be reverted back to natural forests, and that private landowners should be given incentives to plant trees. Earlier, the task force had briefed the Deputy President William Ruto on its findings. Ruto says the recommendations will be implemented to the letter and has directed the Environment Cabinet Secretary to form an implementation matrix within the next 10 days. Andrew Ochieng, NTV.
Police are searching for a group of men suspected to be hired goons who attacked and injured former Nairobi Central Business District Association Chairman Timothy Muriuki at a Nairobi hotel.
Muriuki was overpowered, roughed up and kicked out of the premises just as he was about to address the media over the state of Nairobi City County.
No, where are you? Stop looking for political mileage. You know you.
Scenes that are almost unheard of at this city hotel.
If you are not leaving Boulevard, you are going to the swimming. Okay, I'm leaving. Okay, let's go.
A gang suspected to be goons for hire stormed into what was meant to be a press conference by the former chairman of the Nairobi Central Business District Association, Timothy Muriuki. Muriuki had called the media to give his stand on the state of Nairobi, which has been facing many challenges. But when he started his address, two men intercepted him and roughed him up, claiming he was out to tarnish Governor Mike Sonko's name.
I am not against the governor. I don't understand why.
I don't want to hear anything.
They dragged him away, countering his resistance with greater force, and ejected him from the hotel premises. Here, a mob, which was seemingly waiting for him, attacked him further. Muruki was forced to run for cover at the Norfolk Towers, where he stayed for hours. Journalists who waited outside the hotel to have a chat were chased away by administration police, who arrived shortly after the chaos. We got a copy of the statement that Muruki said he was to read. It reads in part, and I quote, "It is escapist, unrealistic and misleading to attribute Nairobi's current woes to a single institution, let alone the governor. He suggests that solutions can be found if the city's professionals work together with the county government." Zacchaeus Masame, NTV.
On that note, to take off our short break on NTV tonight, we'll be back with much more.
NTV Tonight with Gladys, Gachanja and Trevor, Ombija.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's talk about crime matters now. And residents of Gachanja estate in Ruaraka have decried a rising wave of insecurity that has led to a general state of fear and disrupted public transport operations in the area.
Criminals have been carjacking buses and assaulting locals, leading to several serious injuries, especially from stabbing and a lynching incident last week. NTV reporter Steve Juma visited the residential estate and engaged with locals.
Gachanja Estate, to the residents, was once a home of tranquility and order, but today it has been disrupted by marauding criminal gangs in the recent past. Residents have been suffering at the hands of the merciless gangs, especially between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. We found Charles Ouma at St. Francis Hospital. He came face to face with the brutal wrath of the machete-wielding criminals on Tuesday morning last week. He was stabbed 5 times, strangled and left unconscious, bleeding profusely on the road.
Wakanizuia, wakaniuliza nakimbia nini? Nikamwambia hakuna. Mwingine akanidunga nyuma, nikaanguka chini. Mwingine akanidunga kichwa na mwingine kifua mbele. Wakanipata na 200, wakaniambia kwa nini natembea bila pesa.
Charles can no longer work and is left with a huge medical bill courtesy of the criminals who are still at large.
Kuja kwa dressing na leo nimerudi, nikaambiwa ati wakapima, wakaniambia kuna mshipa mmoja inapitiza hewa.
Likindede, a primary school teacher, was stabbed all over the body in March and critically wounded.
With the increasing rate of insecurity in Gachanja Ruaraka constituency, there is a greater concern on the effectiveness of the National Police Service.
The government, all the police in this area, they are sleeping totally. They are sleeping, kabisa. Because there is no way out. Thugs can come into Gachanja area, they stab people, and then you are taking no action. It is not what you do.
Last month, an armed gang commandeered a matatu, attacked passengers and stole their valuables at the Gachanja bus stop. The gang, which was described by witnesses as comprising of young men, entered the 33-seater matatu as it was about to leave for city center and took vantage positions before attacking. The criminals are believed to be from Dandora, some from Gomongo and Babadogo. They are well armed and believed to be hosted in Gachanja by their accomplices. Residents in the area have raised questions about police patrol and response to distress calls.
Gachanja Estate is roughly 300 meters away from Ruaraka police station. On the far end is administration police post. However, the criminals have continued to terrorize residents here and faced by their action. The buck stops with the police. Steve Juma, NTV.
Well, despite that report by Steve Juma, the National Police Service says crime rates in the country are on the decline, with a difference between the months of January to March indicating a drop from 15% to 1.6% in a similar period last year.
Well, the police service has such a rise in crime detection does not necessarily reflect an increase in the rate of insecurity in the country.
This is in line with their pledge to cooperate with other public or private bodies to provide reliable statistics on crime rates, detection rates, number of complaints against the police and other information considered of interest to the public.
And on that note, we take a short break, and NTV Tonight will be back with much more.
Good evening, welcome to NTV Business. My name is Hudayf Adin, and we start off with Kenyans who had easier time in terms of the cost of living in the month of April, with the rate of inflation dropping to 3.73% from the 4.18% posted in March. Latest data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics indicates that this drop was a result of a slight ease in the cost of food and kerosene. This is the lowest rate not only since April last year, when inflation was at 11.48%, but also the lowest since January 2013. And the Kenya Electricity Generation Company Limited has today received an 18 billion shilling guarantee for its quest to improve the country's energy security while also strengthening its financial position. The World Bank International Development Association has approved $180 million guarantee to the listed energy producer to mobilize private sector financing for its various projects, especially projects around renewable energy. The approval is also expected to help raise up to 30 billion shillings in long-term commercial financing to be used to refinance its existing commercial loans. And Home Africa Group recorded a 7.2% drop in net profit in 2017 compared to 2016, despite an 18.5% jump in revenues. This rose from 222 million shillings to 263 million in 2017. Despite this greater income, the net loss grew, moving from 168 million shillings in 2016 to 181 million last year. This dampened promise of increased revenue is largely due to a rise in the cost of sales, which rose from 160 million shillings to 229 million in the year under review. Selling and distribution expenses and administrative expenses also grew in 2017. The firm reports that project completion stage improved to 48% in 2017 from 43.16% in 2016. And Housing Finance Group is looking for a stronger 2018, whose prospects have been boosted by the shareholders' approval of issuance of bonus shares. This aims at raising the firm's capital base to 1.9 billion shillings, as it is expected to issue an issuance of an additional 35 million shares at a price of 5 shillings per share, in addition to the existing 350 million paid-up shares. This is, however, subject to further regulatory approvals of the decision that was passed at the annual general meeting. The group will be looking to boost, having come out of a difficult 2017 where its profits dropped. The firm also intends to go big on digital front as part of its growth strategy.
2017, we've had a tough year. 2017 was a tough year. We had the full impact of the interest rate capping. We had the long electioneering period. So we're expecting a better year in 2018. We have diversified our business. We're doing a lot of focus now on our digital channels, rolling out our transactional banking, our SME lending. So we expect a much better year this year.
We've gone into other areas, especially focusing on non-funded income to ensure that the volatilities are greatly reduced. One of the key things that we've done exactly is going into the digital space, the mobile financial services.
And now to international business, where Facebook's revenue for the first 3 months of 2018 have surged by more than 50%, despite the negative publicity that the tech firm received due to the recent privacy scandal. The company's advertising revenue rose to $11.9 billion from $7.8 billion in the 3 months period, and Facebook's chief executive Mark Zuckerberg was compelled to appear before the members of the U.S. Congress earlier this month to explain how the social media giant manages consumer data. The company admitted that data for 87 million users was inappropriately shared with a third party. Profits for the first quarter went up to $4.9 billion from $3 billion last year. And finally, economic growth and the demand for housing in Murang'a town and its environs is high, pushing up the construction boom, thus demand for sand and stones. This has in turn made people join the stone and sand quarrying as a quick way to earn money, despite the deadly risks. But even with the demand for building materials, many quarry workers continue to wallow in poverty as they face exploitation, low pay and poor working conditions. Tonight, we begin our extensive coverage of Labor Day from Murang'a County.
At Kiamunyaga Kware in Kiaro constituency, Murang'a County, we meet Anthony Kimani. His job is complex and strenuous. Anthony, who is among hundreds of quarry workers, has no protective gear as he breaks stones. It is a deadly occupation. He says he has seen many of the workers around him die when weak steep walls collapse in the midst of excavation. The father of two says despite the risks, people still continue working in the industry.
Unajua sida ni baya sababu wewe unaweza kuja uone tu inaweza bomoka na unasema utaenda tu sababu umeacha kwako hakuna kitu ya kukuriwa na huwezi enda kutafuta mahali ingine. Hiyo tu ndio unajua. Hakuna kitu kingine.
The quarry has over 100 workers and none is employed on monthly salary basis. All they do is share the amount earned with all involved. What he earns as his wage at the end of the day is a mega amount, just enough to provide a meal for him, his wife and children. At times he goes home empty-handed when they fail to get customers, mostly during rainy seasons. This is due to poor roads which link their quarry as no vehicle can access their workplaces.
Tunategemea ile 200 tunaona tunaliza watoto wetu, tunasomesha, wengine wako na watoto hapa secondary school, wengine wako na watoto hapa primary school, wengine wako na watoto lakini hata hawawezi somesha mpaka secondary sababu hawana huo uwezo. Sababu hii kware hii kazi ya kware tunafanya hapa tunapata riziki kidogo sana. Hiyo ni ya kukula tu na pengine hata mavazi inakosa.
As other Kenyans mark Labor Day, for him it is just any other day and he has nothing to celebrate about it. Despite their contribution to construction industry, he says the government most times forgets their plight.
Wanakujaga hapa na magari makubwa kubwa, wanaingia mpaka na hizo barabara na wanaziona tu. Lakini puda tu tukimaliza kuwapikia kula, wanatoroka hapa tuwezi waona tena. Wanakuja wakati wa campaign alafu wanaenda. Wanaingia huku ndani wakati wa campaign alafu wanaenda. Hakuna riziki kingine wanatusaidia na.
It is the only job they know, thus call upon the local county government to provide them with protective gears and equipment which will boost their work, since they cannot afford to buy any on their own. Anthony and his colleagues are not registered with NHIF, either because they can't afford.
Mtu akiumia hapa ama jiwe imwangukie ama uende kugonga hii ujigonge mguu uvunjike, hakuna mtu anasugurika na wewe sababu hata pale unapata hiyo riziki yule amekuajiri hata yeye hana kitu. Hakuna kitu anapataga ile kubwa. Sasa wewe ukivunjika mguu ama mkono, Mungu tu ndiye atakusaidia sababu hakuna mtu mwingine atakusaidia. Sasa wewe unaenda unakaa kwako, unakaa hivyo. Hiyo inaisha hivyo.
Martin Mora, NTV, Murang'a County.
And all through this week, NTV will continue with the labor agenda, bringing you stories of workers and their quest for better terms of service. And of course, tomorrow we will be bringing you the Labor Day celebration from 9 a.m. Join us tomorrow. My name is Sudhir Faden. Let's leave it there for tonight. Good night.
NTV Business News in association with Gold.
Thank you for staying with us. Cases of gun violence have been reported in Kenya, with some resulting in injuries and deaths. However, the issue is not as widespread here as it is in the United States. By virtue of the cases being more rampant in the US, there are more efforts to tame the often fatal union of the finger, the trigger, and the bullet.
Pamela Sigi visited a neighborhood in Cincinnati where, like many other areas, the initiative is seeking to bring down gun violence and its bitter fruit. She now takes us down that lane.
On a blustery evening in Cincinnati, a community gathered in a collective sense of loss. The glow of candles, held by many Houdini or Ramon bands, shimmered through the darkness that was more of the mood than the night. Friends and family returned to the scene of the crime, clouded with emotional memories of the budding rapper.
Talk to God. God is your best friend. If you don't know, he is your best friend.
There won't be. It was an emotional night for those close to 18-year-old Ramon, who died after he was shot on a corner street in Over the Rhine, a neighborhood in Cincinnati. The band's family is not alone in its grief. Over the Rhine has had its share of gun drama. Tens of people have been killed by gunfire in the same neighborhood. On many streets in Over the Rhine, there are lost souls and forgotten dreams. The desperation is palpable. Drug addicts and prostitutes take shelter in most of these abandoned buildings.
According to the FBI, Over the Rhine is considered among 25 most dangerous neighborhoods in the United States.
But that is slowly changing, thanks to the Cincinnati Initiative to Reduce Violence, a community program that was started some years back with the aim of cutting down crime in the city.
Come through and do something. Meaning, like I say, you gotta...
Former convict Terrence Will was caught up in drug dealing.
Beef, war. I mean, that's all we seeing on TV. Iraq been going on 10 years, decade now. All we seeing is boom, boom, bang, 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 boom, 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 bang, bang, bang. All the 6-year-olds coming up, boom, boom, bang, bang, bang. All they see is Iraq, Baghdad, Pakistan. All we seeing, flooded the TVs with this stuff. The kids can't get away from it. Every action movie come out, every drama movie come out. Some got to be with a banger in it. You get what I'm trying to say?
Terrence is now an outreach worker with the program.
TV, cut it off. Radio, cut it off. Get back out here. Come back out here with action. Let's talk. You know what I mean? Quit reading out of a book. Get the people who really know how to live, the people with real understanding about life. Get them back out here. Get them out here. The ones like Martin Luther King, the ones who was really in the struggle, coming out here hitting these streets talking.
With a new program, the number of former convicts going back to prison in Ohio has hit a new low. Clarence Bend is among pioneers of this program. We visited their offices right in the center of Over the Rhine, where Clarence has affixed photos of local residents who have been fatally shot. He tells me that the collage has quadrupled in size since inception and is now walled to more than 160 photographs of victims who range from far too young to very old.
If you tell a young man to stop selling drugs, if you tell a young man to put his gun down, then you have to put something back in that place. And a lot of these young men that really want to do something that stuck out here or getting caught up in a traditional type thing, they need real jobs. Substantial jobs to be able to take care of their families, to take care of themselves. They need help if they've already been in the legal system, expungements on their records for first-time felons. They need help with housing.
But even with the significant drop in homicides, Cincinnati, like any other city in the world, is struggling to get those numbers down. Pamela Sigi, NTV.
And from Pamela's report in the US and back home, the National Police Services say that crime rates in the country are on the decline, with a difference between the months of January to March indicating a drop from 15% to about 1.6% in a similar period last year.
The police service asserts a rise in crime detection does not necessarily reflect an increase in the rate of insecurity in the country.
This is in line with the pledge to cooperate with other public or private bodies to provide reliable statistics on crime rates, detection rates, number of complaints against the police, and other information considered of interest to the public.
In the wake of alleged police involvement in a crime where a man claimed to have been robbed only to find the people who robbed him were the police officers he was supposed to report the incident to at the police station he went to, the National Police Service has released a quarterly crime rate report in the country. The report has it that the crime rate has reduced significantly in the last 3 months compared to the first quarter of 2017.
Quarterly crime and incident report.
Speaking during the release of the report, Assistant Inspector General Charles Owino pointed out that crime rates are affected by the overall occurrences in the country. A good example, the general elections.
There are reasons of explanation into this. Usually when we have an electioneering year, it is a year that the youths are kept very busy. They get a lot of money from the campaign teams, and therefore you find that we experience sometimes lesser offenses during the years for election, save for election offenses like demonstrations and so on and so forth.
Even with a notable decrease in the overall crime in the country, there was an increase in several categories of offenses, with offenses against persons leading with 339 cases and offenses against morality closing the bracket with 119 cases. There has been a decrease in crimes reported in categories such as homicides, theft by servants, and offenses involving police officers. The Assistant IG also pointed out in the different categories of crime, there are those crimes that have more to do with standards of morality in the society, posing a great challenge to police officers. Crimes such as offenses of procuring abortion, concealing birth, and the unnatural offenses. Border theft is also among petty offenses. More cases of dangerous drugs have been detected in 2018 compared to the same period in 2017. This a positive for the police service.
This is positive in the sense that when you go to the streets and you find drugs and you find there is no detection, then there must be a mistake.
The service has also lost officers in the line of duty. The economic crime report had it that there was an increase in crime rates in the country. The police service, however, rejects this outcome, maintaining that crime rates have dropped. Rosalia Karanja, NTV.
Time to take another short break right here on NTV Tonight. We'll be back with some sporting action.
Welcome to NTV Sport. My name is Brian Otual. Zoo Kericho stand host Kakamega Homeboys 2-1 in Monday's solitary Kenyan Premier League match to rise a slot 5th in the standings. Visiting Zoo stand the host when KPL 2017 MVP Michael Madoya scored barely 3 minutes into the match. Esia Estonia equalized in the 21st minute for Homeboys, and the two teams went into the break deadlocked. but Danson Namasaka scored for the winners for Zoo's win in 2 minutes to the end to earn his side the 3 precious points. Zoo, coached by Sami Okoth, are unbeaten in 5 games, drawing twice and winning thrice. And Gor Mahia topped the Kenyan Premier League standings on 27 points, 3 ahead of Mathare United, who held them to a 2-2 draw, but they have 2 games in hand. Coastal side Bandari beat Nakumatt to lie third as Ulinzi Stars rose a place up to 4th with a win over visiting Chemelil Sugar. FC Leopards' slump continued as they drew with Vihiga United to lie 5th. Nakumatt are bottom club in the KPL with just 7 points from 13 games. Thika United are second from bottom on 9 points, while Sony Sugar, who have played 11 games, complete the bottom 3. A highlight of the weekend was super sub Boniface Mushiri scoring a free kick in the 89th minute as Tusker edged Sony Sugar 3-2 to see Robert Matano picking his 2nd victory in 5 days since his appointment as Tusker coach.
The spirit is high and you cannot win if you are not fighting. So I'm happy with the progress and I urge them to do more so that we can be where we belong.
And perennial arch rivals Gor Mahia and AFC Leopards renew their rivalry on Labor Day as they battle in the Hull City Challenge match at the Afra Stadium in Nakuru that will be broadcast on NTV. KPL leaders Gor Mahia were the favourite stag after going for 11 matches unbeaten, but the last 2 draws should provide a window for Ingwe, winless in 5 KPL games, to capitalise on. The one-off Mashemeji Derby clash, whose winner sets up a date with English Championship side Hull City in a friendly on 13th May, kicks off at 2 p.m. Hull City officials will also conduct coaching clinics and training camps in the country. VIP tickets will retail at 300 shillings, while regular tickets will cost 100 shillings at the match venue. And for the first time in 3 years, the Enterprise Cup final will feature new teams as Homeboys RFC and Impala Saracens staged stunning surprises in the semi-finals. The DJs danced past KCB 12-10 in the semi-final at the Ruaraka Den to bring the Bankers' 3 years Enterprise Cup reign to an end. The Saris defeated Kabras Sugar 16-13 in Kakamega to also storm into the final for the first time since 2011. The Mwamba Cup final will see Strathmore 2 battle it out with KCB 2. Meanwhile, Menengai Oilers and Mean Machine, who secured Kenya Cup promotion after they both won their championship semi-final matches, will do battle in the championship final. The finals will be contested on Saturday.